France is currently undergoing a major G. Floyd Summer of Love type moment. But what's happening there is actually much bigger than that. Because what's happening in France is what the global elite wants to happen to the rest of the world. To simplify the story, a 17-year-old unarmed teenager was pulled over in a traffic stop after hitting somebody or whatever. This is a screenshot of the video. These are French police officers leaning on the hood of his car trying to convince him to stop. Their weapons are clearly drawn and they're clearly yelling to him to stop. Yet despite this, he starts to accelerate and drive away with the guy leaning on his hood, clearly evading a lawful order. And although the kid is unarmed, if they were to let him go away, he would represent a threat to society, a threat to the community. And quite frankly, if you're sitting there and there's a cop sitting on your windshield pointing a weapon at you and you fail to stop and you drive away with him on your hood, that's what happened. Had he done what any other person, any reasonable law-abiding citizen would have done and just stopped, he'd be alive and none of this would have happened. But even that is beside the point, beside the big picture of what this means. Now, first of all, they want to get this police officer for voluntary manslaughter, even though it may or may not even stick. And again, I don't know what he was supposed to do. But again, that's beside the point. Let's focus on the big picture. Because after this happened, and subsequently over the last several days, including right now, protests have swept the nation and even nearby nations. But these are not protests. These are violent riots. And garbage rags like CNN and all of these lying demon clickbait justifying dirt merchants are doing their part to stoke the flames and indirectly or directly encourage more people to participate in this mayhem, playing their role. Every leftist news outlet is doing exactly what they would do in the US and call them protests and not violent mayhem riots. This has resulted in thousands of people getting arrested. We're talking fires, destruction, robbery, crime to an outrageous level. Cars and property being destroyed, libraries being burned down, businesses, grocery stores looted, Nike store looted, luxury handbags, etc. Because it's not about supposed justice for this 17-year-old kid. It's about violent, angry mobs showing what they're capable of, and the left mainstream media and all of the demons who monetize it, pushing and encouraging more of this type of behavior to usher in stricter laws on self-preservation and protection, stricter laws on not being able to protect your own property, more authority, more destruction and more violence, and more control. This has been made even more evident because it has affected a neighboring country where they have a completely different police department and it has nothing to do with this. Owning a firearm for the purpose of self-defense is not legal in France. You have to have a license for sport shooting or for hunting, and that's it. You are not permitted to have one in the entire country for the purpose of self-defense, which means as these psycho demon looters come and destroy absolutely everything around you, you are complete and totally helpless. Which means once this is over and the dust settles, the only option is to beg for more control, to beg for more police, to beg for more rules. There is no other option. But between now and then, you just have to sit there like a limp duck waiting to get squashed, or you have to hide. You become a helpless victim, which is exactly what they want. But here's what they really want. They, including the French president, started blaming social media for fueling these riots. Social media is just another way of explaining the communication between people. Without social media, this message would have spread just as fast, and it would have still happened. And that's the point. Because once they're done blaming social media and putting in all these strictures and controls on what you can say, who you can say it to, and the legalities about your communication, and of course the surveillance of that communication, the next step will be your phone calls, your text messages, etc. More surveillance, more power, more control. Because you need to understand this. This is really important. Without the use of social media and the ability for this message and this video to be distributed, you better believe that this video would have been recorded regardless. But instead of it being shared on social, it would have been shared on these exact same outlets of which they own. These outlets are equally, if not more, responsible for showing, distributing, and encouraging this behavior, certainly more than human beings talking to each other via social. These outlets would have used this video, monetized it, ran commercials, drew all the attention, and stoked the flame just the same. And even though they didn't post the video on social, they went and pushed it even further, made newscasts about it, wrote their articles, made their money. And remember, all of these companies are owned at the very top by the financiers that want this to happen. This benefits them. This benefits the global elite. This benefits the control structure because it means more control over the people and their ability to speak. and ultimately their ability to speak and gather peacefully, which means your dissent of the centralized control, the bureaucracy, will no longer even be legal. So they blame it on social, they get you all riled up, they take control of the social, people's ability to speak, eventually they come for your text messages and your calls, and meanwhile the news media will run amok. They'll monetize it just the same. In fact, they'll keep stoking it, and then they'll have control over the message and the money from it. Where, when, and how, which is ultimately what they want anyways. Remember, they set the rules. And then this happens. The rioters break into a gun shop, and now they're armed. But they're the only ones that are armed other than the authorities, which means that no citizen could protect themselves. No citizen would be able to legally protect themselves even if they had one of these licenses. They'd be outnumbered. The criminals know that they're the only ones that have them other than the actual law enforcement, and they're way outnumbered, which creates an even more volatile situation. And instead of doing the opposite, they'll probably use this to justify why these gun shops shouldn't even exist, why there should be no guns at all, in which case they'll just come in from other countries anyhow, or be man-made, or whatever. Again, the violence, the mayhem, all of this feeds them. It feeds the elites. They're not going to have their protection taken away. It's all of you, the peasants, the citizens. You're the one who's going to lose by this. And who's carrying out a lot of these riots and a lot of this mayhem? What has France been witness to over the last couple of years? A tremendous amount of migration. I believe the person that was in this police stop originally, and likely lots of the people that are protesting on his behalf or whatever, fall into that category. Oh, well, America seems to be having a similar problem, right? People who don't originate there, who don't have the same morals and values, and the same values of the community, the same history, just causing mayhem, taking what's theirs, not even caring, not the same level of values. It is so important to understand the big picture of what's happening here. Police officers likely do what they were trained and authorized to do. Individual breaks law, brings situation upon himself. No responsibility for him. It gets posted on social, exchanged by normal people, then inflamed and exacerbated by the elite-controlled media organizations. They stoke the flames, cover it, monetize it. Absolute mayhem happens. Nobody has the ability to even protect themselves. They put charges on the police officer, which means that more police officers won't act to even prevent something like this in the first place, which means the kid would have just driven off and been another threat to people. They blame social media as a means of controlling the people even further, controlling, monitoring, and auditing their text messages, making speech and the exchange of information illegal, fined, punished. The people that can't protect themselves beg for more control, beg for the state to be bigger, larger, beg for more law enforcement, beg to be controlled and protected. The taxpayer foots all the bill for the destruction. No one is held accountable. More illegal migrants get let in. Less values. Less family units. More justification for it. Calling them protests instead of riots. Encouraging more of it. Using it as a petri dish to show the rest of the world that you're only one overly inflated, media-fueled, psychotic mayhem riot event away from complete domination. The rights of the individual get weakened. The rights of the bureaucracy get increased. The elites monetize it both ways. And freedom continues to be eroded worldwide. This is the exact blueprint playing out in real time for complete and total authoritarian control. Control over self-preservation, stoking fear and monetizing it, limiting speech and information distribution, increased power to the state, the bureaucracy, and law enforcement, martial law abilities, etc., widespread surveillance, thought crimes, word crimes, speech crimes, intent, theoretical intent, and criminalizing that, and instituting these rules and laws in only ways that will affect the lower and middle class. Why they've been completely demoralized, made unsafe, unable to protect themselves and their businesses, and have come to complete wards of the bureaucracy, wards of the state, servants of the global elite. If you can just see beyond the emotional manipulation of a supposedly unarmed 17-year-old and a supposedly fiery riot, aka a protest, you can understand that this is just yet another play, yet another chip at complete and total world domination. Or maybe it's just brutality and a bunch of people that need some Nikes to eat. France is dealing with it now after years of lots of other egregious, insane rules and authoritarian steps. This is just the next piece, the next nail in the coffin for France. But it's coming here and it's coming to you next. Bet on it.